So please start.
Welcome back, everyone. As I was just saying that we are about to begin the next plenary. So this is the fourth plenary of this year's conference. And the plenary talk will be delivered by the esteemed Professor Niladri Chatterjee, sir, Professor of the University of Kalyani. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We are absolutely honored to have you with us today. Now, without much ado, since we are running behind the schedule, I would now like to request Professor Bapin Mullik to formally introduce Sir for the session. Now, Bapina, if you can unmute yourself and you can.
Thank you so much, Jahira.
Yeah.
I hope I am audible, right?
Yes, perfectly. Yes.
Okay. So, very good evening to all. This is Bapin Mullik from the Department of English, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar College, Betai, Nadia. And on behalf of Bengali Academy for Social Empowerment, Gaur Mahavidyalaya, which is affiliated to University of Gaur-Bongo, Ambedkar Center for Cultural Studies, and the Department of English, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar College, I heartily welcome you all to this session, as Jahira has already announced, of our virtual conference, Belonging and Homelessness. And today in this particular session, plenary session 4, we are going to explore the topic, as you know, why don't you like to go? Is home acquired or imposed? And for the discussion on this topic, we have with us Professor Niladri Chatterjee, who is a professor at the Department of English, University of Kalyani, Nadia. He has a teaching experience of more than 20 years. And in the year 2019, he has published a very important book that is The Scholar, published from Queer Inc. And it was originally published as ebook in 2016. Professor Ranjan Chatterjee has been awarded Doctor of Philosophy for his thesis on Christopher Isherwood, and he got the award from Jadavpur University in 2014. He was a Fulbright pre-doctoral fellow at the University of Texas at Austin, America, from 1996 to 1997. He has been awarded British Council Charles Wallace Fellowship at Downing College, University of Cambridge in the year 1998. He has edited a wonderful book, Nari Bhav, Androgyny and Female Impersonation in India, that was edited jointly with Professor Tutun Mukherjee, and that book was published from Niyogi Books in 2016. And this book is also available on Amazon. Professor Chatterjee has a Facebook page that I must mention. There's New Gender Studies, and there are more than 15,000 scholars, academicians, and this page was primarily set up for the students of New Gender course at the University of Kalyani, which is introduced by Professor Chatterjee. And this group is now open for anyone who is interested in current developments in gender studies and in strategic alliances with other identitarian fields of study, such as disability studies and post-colonial theory. Professor Chatterjee has delivered more than 250 lectures in various national, international seminars, workshops, conferences. So without further ado, I would now like to shift this virtual space to Professor Chatterjee for delivering the lecture. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very happy to be here. So I'm not going to spend too much time because I understand that I was supposed to speak from 7 and it is already 7:20. So I have about 40 minutes or so. So that would be fine. So 40 minutes is about all that I need. I certainly don't want to eat into other papers. So that will be that. Sorry. When I was asked to submit a title for this particular presentation, I thought a little bit about it, and then what came to my mind is, why don't you like Tagore? And the reason why I thought that I would want to call my paper Why Don't You Like Tagore is because it might be sufficiently provocative, because my sort of lack of enthusiasm for Tagore is something that is quite widely known. And several people have demanded to know, why is it that I don't like Tagore? It is the question that interests me. It is a question that interests me because it somehow presumes that since I have been born into a Bengali family, and since I am born in Bengal, so therefore it is almost as though I would grow up with, it is almost like a genetic affinity towards Tagore. It is almost as though Tagore is supposed to be a part of my bloodstream, and I would love Tagore exactly as much as I love oxygen. So when people find that my enthusiasm for Tagore is not quite as strong as it is perhaps desired, this is a question that I'm constantly faced with, which is, why don't you like Tagore? But this paper is obviously not going to be about Tagore. It is going to be about what lies behind a question like that. So therefore, I am much more interested in the assumptions behind such a question. Why is such a question asked at all? Why is such a question necessary? And why is there some kind of a sense that liking Tagore is perhaps compulsory? You know, if you're born Bengali, you absolutely should like Tagore. So what is this shouldness? That is something that I think that I would probably want to talk about. So what I would really wish to do is to ask the question as to, is home something that we acquire, or is home something that is thrust upon us? And we are put in a situation where we are expected to recognize it as home, even though we don't quite feel comfortable in a situation where we find ourselves. Because I think that is a question that probably needs to be asked. I was hearing the question answer session. I'm so sorry that I didn't join sufficiently early to hear all the papers, but I was listening to the question answer session. And the one thing that, of course, kept jumping up at me is that the way in which homelessness is being regarded is a kind of a religious homelessness, which is being regarded as a geographical homelessness. So these are the kinds of homelessnesses that are being discussed. So therefore, I would want to look at the idea of home in a slightly different way. Is one truly at home when one feels not at home? That is the basic question. Is one truly at home when one feels not at home, even though one is religiously and geographically situated in a place where they are not being marginalized either for their religion or for their geographical location? That is the basic question that I seek to put before the esteemed audience. Is that, how do we think about homelessness when the person is saying, I am homeless, although they belong in a society where they are expected to belong, and they belong to parents who are not immigrants. So therefore, they are like, they are like native to a certain place. What if that person does not feel at home? How does that feel like? And what that basically means is that I'm actually going to tie the idea of home, the idea of being at home, the sense of comfort that one usually associates with the idea of being at home. So when we use the phrase, please make yourself at home, what we are basically asking the person to do is to be comfortable, is to be relaxed. So what about those people who live at home, that is to say, at a place where they are neither religiously marginalized, nor geographically marginalized, nor ethically, culturally marginalized, when none of these marginalizations exist, and yet they feel that they are not at home, what does that feel like? What does that mean? And so therefore, I am linking the idea of home to culture. And because I'm linking the idea of home to culture, I'm therefore asking this particular question as to the culture that we are supposedly inheriting purely through birth. Does that culture automatically become my culture? And then when I'm expected to love that culture, exactly what does that expectation entail? Because what we actually think about love is that it is voluntary. Yes, love, the last time I checked, is not compulsory. So therefore, nobody asks you, nobody demands that you should fall in love with so and so. Although I'm sure this has been known to happen, where parents have fixed a match for their son and or their daughter, and the parents have said, it's okay that you don't love him today, you will grow to love him once you get married. So it is almost as though it is an order on the part of the parents that once the child gets married, the child will fall in love with the absolute stranger to whom their destiny has been tied. But so therefore, that is the question: is that exactly what does it mean when you are when loving is compulsory? What does that mean? So you are you are declared the inheritor of a certain culture, and then you're expected to love that culture. What does that expectation entail? I would certainly say that this expectation is patriarchal, even though some of us may or may not recognize it as such, but it is. And when I'm talking about culture, I'm actually not going to talk about culture in a very broad sense. I'm also going to talk about culture in a very particular sense. I'm going to talk about the culture of gender, and I'm going to talk about the culture of sexuality. So therefore, so I'm kind of narrowing down my discussion. I am narrowing my discussion to what does it mean to be homeless in one's gender. That is now the narrowed down question. What does it mean to be homeless in one's gender? What does it mean to be homeless in one's sexuality? So those are the two questions that I'm hoping to put forward. In the introduction, reference has already been made to my novel. I usually am not in favor of reading from my novel until people beg me to. But in this case, I felt that when I was writing that novel, the sense of diaspora is something that was of some concern to me. And I felt that having a dialogue between the two characters would perhaps allow me to engage with that question of diaspora and exactly what kind of diaspora that is. So this is a particular conversation that I'm going to read from. This is a conversation in which you have got one American gay man, and he is talking about a conversation that he had with his Indian but American born, that is to say non-resident Indian American boyfriend. And this is how the language goes. So he's talking about the way in which he discovered gay literature. This is the name of the character is Zach, and his boyfriend's name is Sanjay. And this is Zach is actually talking about how he discovered gay literature. So one day I told San, of course, is the way in which Zach refers to his boyfriend Sanjay. So one day, sorry, I told San that at least he knew two languages. Growing up gay for me was like everybody speaking a language that was not mine. It was only later when I discovered gay fiction at Seconds being a second-hand bookstore. It was only later when I discovered gay fiction at Seconds and started reading authors like Edmund White that I realized that this was the language I identified with. It is like an Indian guy in America discovering Hindi, reading Hindi, but having no one to speak Hindi with. All he hears around him is English. You see, all that I heard was heterosexuality. I did not belong in that language, nor in the country of heterosexuality. I was diasporic too. Only my diasporic status could not be advertised. It had to be kept hidden. If you are gay, you are diasporic, even if you are born in the country of both of your parents. Of course, not to be outshone, San said, by that logic, I'm doubly diasporic. I was born in a country where they did not speak the language of my parents, and they did not speak the language of my heart. So he won. So that's what it is. So basically, let me read out just a little bit of it. But he also stopped thinking that just because I was born in this country, I had it easy. He did not have to endure the kind of bullying that I had to in high school. We compared our notes one day. San's experiences do not even come close to my experiences. He was never called the ugly names I was, especially by the jocks. I can still hear them in my head like it was yesterday. Why did they hate me so? But how would you know? I'm sure you were not a bully in high school. I'm sure you stood up against bullying, didn't you? So I'm going to stop there. So the sentence that I would basically want to focus on over here is when he says that if you are gay, you are diasporic. That is the one sentence. So what does that mean when he says if you are gay, you are diasporic? What he's broadly saying, therefore, is that sexuality has a language in the same way that gender has a language. Yes. So therefore, what happens when you find yourself in a situation where people are talking in a language that you simply do not understand? For a gay man, for example, when he is surrounded by people who are constantly talking about the prospect of him getting married to a woman, it is something that he simply cannot conceive of, because he understands that being married would entail sexual intercourse, and he has absolutely no desire to have any kind of sexual intercourse with a woman. But this is something that he has to face every single day. So therefore, sexuality becomes a language. It is a language that he hears around himself. It is a language that he understands, but it is a language that he cannot relate to. Yeah. So it is exactly like if you understand English, you know what people who talk in English are saying, but you simply cannot relate to the language of English because English feels like an alien language to you. What I'm trying to suggest is, therefore, can sexuality be a language? Can gender be a language? And so therefore, what we are actually looking at then is the way in which gender can also become a language. So if you are actually growing up, for example, in a family where you are a single female person, and if everybody else in the family is male, yes, so say for example, in a hypothetical family where you belong to a family where your father has got 3 brothers, yes, your grandmother has died, your mother has died, and you have 4 other brothers, and you are a girl. So therefore, there is no other female relative in your family. So all the discussion that happens in the family is carried out by men. Now, this is a discussion that you understand. When they talk about women in a certain way, you feel offended. because you simply don't understand why your uncles are talking about women in this way. You simply don't understand why your brothers are talking about women in this way. So you understand that language, but you can't speak it. You cannot speak it. My question is that in that case, are you therefore at home? Are you at home? Or is this also a kind of homelessness? One cannot actually talk about homelessness or home, of course, without the Freudian idea of unheimlich, yes, sorry, unhomeliness. So therefore, you cannot really talk about home and homelessness without talking about the unhomely. Now, as far as I understand Freud, what is being said in the unhomely is that part of your home which you're not familiar with. When I talk about the unheimlich in class, I very often give the example of the attic. Yeah, that room on the top, that room in the terrace, which has been lying locked for decades and decades and decades, and nobody ever opens that room. The lock has gone rusty. The key can't be found. Nobody dares to open that room. You don't know what's in that room. So, but it is very much a part of your home. It's very much a part of your house. It is a house in which you wake up every morning, and it is a house in which you go to bed at night. And yet there is a part of the house that is absolutely alien to you. It is a house that you simply don't know. It is a part of your house which is not your house. It is a part of your home that is unhomely, unheimlich. So therefore, when we are talking about somebody who grows up, say for example, in a family full of men, and she's the only woman, we understand that the language becomes gendered. Yes, and so therefore she knows that there is perhaps a part of this home which perhaps would make her feel comfortable. There must be a part of this home that she would be comfortable in. She doesn't know where that is. It's the attic that she doesn't have access to. And in a similar way, if you are growing up gay, for example, in a family where everybody else is supposedly heterosexual, then also you feel that you are not at home. So that is also a kind of homelessness in which you genuinely don't know where you belong. You don't belong there at all. I will talk about something that happened when I was in the US in 1996. And a novelist who was visiting at that time, he has subsequently become a very famous novelist now, but I'm certainly not going to name him. So he was visiting my university at that time, the University of Texas at Austin. And he was there to talk about a film that has been made on his poems. Yeah. And so while he was there, he was gay. And while he was there, my roommate, who was gay, he made friends with this person. He was put in touch with this particular novelist. And the novelist demanded to be shown around the gay bars of the town, which of course my roommate very happily did. Now, what I was shocked by then, I'm not shocked by now, I was shocked by then, is after he returned from his tour of the gay bars and the, gay clubs of Austin, is that he said something very, very peculiar, and I didn't quite understand what it meant. He said that I feel more at home in the gay clubs of Austin than I do in Bombay, where I live. I was shocked by that. I was horrified. I was outraged. And I thought, how dare he talk like this? How dare he talk like this? Shouldn't he take pride in being an Indian? And I was stupid in those days. So I didn't quite understand the the ramifications. After all these years, after 25 years, his words come back to haunt me. And I realize how stupid I was to have actually been offended by what he says. I should not have been offended. What I should have actually done was to understand. I think somebody has probably, right, thank you so much. Somebody had just unmuted themselves. So what I really was therefore looking at is, I was outraged. I shouldn't have been outraged. What I should have done was try to understand exactly where he was coming from. This is what he was saying, is that he feels he's an Indian. He is somebody who speaks fluent Marathi. His family is extremely well versed in Marathi. They live in Bombay. They are Hindu. So in every single way, in Bombay, he should have felt at home. But no, he didn't. He felt at home in the gay bars and gay clubs of Austin, where there are no Indians. And chances are the people who are there in the gay bars and gay clubs of Austin, they are not fluent in Marathi. But that didn't bother him. He felt at home there. So therefore, is gender a home? Is sexuality a home? And if we are not denied, if we are denied access to the gender that we most relate to, if we are denied access to the sexuality that we feel is our own, within our own home, then how much at home are we? So what we can do, therefore, is maybe when we talk about homelessness, we should perhaps try to definitely talk about homelessness that is geographical, talk about homelessness that is religious, of course, absolutely valid. But maybe those are not the only two kinds of homelessnesses that are there. Maybe there are other kinds of homelessnesses. Maybe gender is a home, maybe sexuality is a home. And maybe those are the things that we really need to look at. I have, for example, met many, many people who have felt much happier reading English literature, Bengalis, who have felt much happier reading English literature than they have felt reading Bengali literature, for which they have been called all kinds of names. They have been called, people that the British left behind. They have been called people who suffer from a colonial hangover. Yeah. So it is almost as though in order to be truly post-colonial, you have to take great pride in the language that you have been completely accidentally born into, a language that you did not choose. And you're expected to take pride in something that you didn't choose. How extraordinary. But that is something which we take for granted. Of course, if you're born in a Bengali family, you should take pride in Bangla. And here are these people who are constantly abused, they are made fun of, they are the butt of jokes, because they genuinely can't relate to the language that they're born into. They cannot relate to the culture that they're born into. If today we are talking about transgender rights, shouldn't we also be talking about transcultural rights? Shouldn't we also be talking about the rights of those people who simply do not relate to the culture that they're born to, who are deeply attracted to a culture that is not their own? The irony of this is that when people are, say, for example, from other countries, and they show an affinity for Indian culture, oh, we are so happy. We are so very happy. We take great pride in showing off, Europeans or Americans who speak Bangla. Oh my God, look at this Sahib. Look how wonderfully he speaks Bangla. Look how wonderfully he recites Sanskrit. Yes, YouTube is full of videos of Europeans who have become disciples of an Indian monk, and they have adopted Vaishnavism. And there are Bengali Hindus who revel in these people. Oh, isn't it wonderful that they, in spite of being European, have embraced Hinduism? Oh, isn't that glorious? But if a Bengali person says that, yes, I'm hugely attracted to Italian Roman Catholicism, oh my God, don't you love your country? Don't you love Hinduism? So therefore, there is some kind of a hypocrisy that I think is built into the way in which we think about culture, in the sense that because I'm accidentally born into a certain culture, I'm accidentally born into a certain religion, I'm accidentally born into a certain gender, I'm accidentally born into a certain heteronormative structure, I must like it. I must defend it, even though I know that there are 10,000 things that are wrong in the culture that I have been born to. But I shouldn't be a Ghoresh Shutru Bibhishon, as it were. I should not betray my own culture. The question is, what is my own culture? The culture that has been dumped on me, or the culture that I have chosen out of love? And I think that is something which really is something that actually should concern us, because I think very often these are the questions that we simply do not ask. We take our birth culture for granted far too often. And when we do that, we actually are doing great disservice to our intellect, because we are actually foreclosing the possibility of reaching out to another culture. Judith Butler, whose name I have to invoke because, of course, I'm a fan of hers. But in this case, I will refer to Judith Butler, not because of what she says about gender being performative. We all know that spiel, so I'm not going to go there. I am going to talk about what Judith Butler writes in her book, most probably Undoing Gender, in which she talks about love. And when she talks about love, she says that love is ecstatic. She says love is ecstatic. And then she breaks down that word ecstatic. She says, I'm going to break down that word. I'm going to make it ecstatic. Ex, as in exogamy, extraneous. X is outside. Static, of course, we know, is stable, firm, stuck in one place. And she says that what love does is that love makes you ecstatic. What does she mean? She says love makes you ecstatic because it shakes you out of your staticity. Love changes you. Love makes you something that you were not born into. Love makes you something that you are not born as. Love makes you something different from the way in which you have been conceived culturally, linguistically, religiously by people around you. Love changes you. So if love changes you, then therefore I genuinely don't understand what it is to love the culture that you have been born into. I don't understand what kind of love that is, because my understanding of love is that you are attracted to something that is outside of yourself, which is why patriarchy is extremely disturbed by love. Patriarchy is disturbed by love because love is very threatening to patriarchy, because love changes you. And patriarchy does not like change. Patriarchy likes stability. You should stick to your gender, you should stick to your religion, you should stick to your country, you should stick to everything that you had while you were born. Don't step out of the Lakshman Rekha. Don't do anything that you are not, that is not in conformity with the culture that you have inherited. You didn't choose, you didn't fall in love, it was dumped on you. So patriarchy is disturbed by love because love changes you, and patriarchy doesn't want change. But if I am to love a culture, and if that culture happens to be one that is supposedly alien to me, then where is my home? What do I call home? Where do I find the comfort, the relaxation that perhaps the culture that I have been born into has not provided me? So I am actually going to end this presentation by putting in front of you the idea that this is just a notion, that don't automatically, take up the cudgels for your own culture, and don't think of the culture that you're born into as automatically your own culture, because it isn't. Your culture is the one that you choose. Because we don't love the person that is thrust on us. We love the person that we meet. We love the person that we meet very often outside of our comfort zone. As I'm very fond of telling my students, that when you fall in love, the person most surprised is going to be you, because you would be shocked by the person that you have fallen in love with. You're going to wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh my God, I hate everything about this person, and yet I can't stop thinking about them. What happens? You become ecstatic. You are taken out of your staticity. Your love changes you. If we are talking about literature, if we are talking about culture, if we are talking about literature specifically, what literature does is that it loves language. And how does literature love language? Literature loves language by changing it. So I think what I'm actually looking at, therefore, is a sense of change. We are looking at a sense in which we are altered by love. If you happen to love that the culture that you're born into, absolutely no problem. No problem. But please don't make fun of those who cannot love the home that they have. Because gender-wise, sexuality-wise, culture-wise, language-wise, emotionally, they belong elsewhere. Because haven't we all heard of the saying, home is where the heart is? And heart surely is about love. So let us perhaps try to take a slightly wider view of the way in which home and homelessness can also sometimes carry gendered, sexual implications that we perhaps are not very often aware. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Bapin, over to you. So if you have any question, sir, I think we can take one or two questions. So if the audience have any questions, so please ask it.
I hope I have stuck to the time limit.
Yes, sir. Yet we can take one or two questions.
That would be lovely. I can
request to
imagine that
audience,
what I
if
have
you,
created
yes,
is stunning
yes.
silence.
I think the audience are thinking. So
Good.
if
Isn't that what a seminar should do? The audience, I hope, have been
Sir,
shaken into thinking things. Yes, I think Abu Salim has raised a hand. So Abu Salim has raised a hand. Riaz Ahmed has raised a hand. So maybe Abu Salim, you could perhaps unmute yourself and ask your question, please. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. And nice to meet with you. And I'm such delighted by
Thank
your
you so
lecture.
much.
I'm from
Thank you so
Bengal.
much.
First time I met with someone that you gave such a good lecture about this. My question is, sir, if someone is feeling that he is residing in his home, but still he is not connected with his heart in his home or her home, then what the person should do and what the person must do to be that home.
Yes, the answer, of course, is very simple.
The answer, of course, is very simple.
I'm getting a feedback, so maybe if Abu, if you could mute yourself. Thank you so much. The answer is very simple. Follow your heart.
Simple, follow your heart.
Abu, I think you've probably also unmuted yourself. I'm so sorry. Follow your heart. It may be, like I said, it is Abu. I think you're repeatedly unmuting yourself. I'm so sorry. Follow your heart. It is difficult to do, but hey, nobody ever said love is easy. Love is always difficult. Isn't it my friend Shakespeare who said the course of true love never did run smooth? So if you are loving a culture that is supposedly not your own, it will be difficult. People are going to make fun of you. People are going to laugh at you in the same way that people made fun on and laughed at Majnu when he fell in love with Laila. Did that stop Majnu? No. So therefore, the thing to do is to continue with the love. Seek your home, because ultimately, you get to decide what is your home. Nobody else does. So one has to be absolutely courageous and to go out and say, you know what? I am not at home in this home. My home is elsewhere, and I'll go and seek it. Thank you so much, Abu. I think Professor Riaz Ahmed probably has a question. So,
yes.
Professor Ahmed, if you could unmute yourself, sir, and ask me your question.
Thank you very much, sir. You have given a very good enlightening lecture. I must appreciate you, the language, the way you presented, everything was up to the mark. I think you have answered most of the question you have answered, sir. But there is the one thing, like if you remember, or you must be knowing that nowadays it is being tried that one nation, one people, one rule, one everything, one. They are trying to do it.
Yes.
Okay. So what I feel that not every time the person who is made to obey the rule which he doesn't want, or who is feeling homelessness, it is in his hand. It's much beyond out of his hand. His economic conditions, his presence, his societal impact, many other things impact him to follow the herd rules. There's a law of conformity where the powerful people make the other to follow. The rule of law of conformity is one of the biggest, you can say, the tool in form of the powerful people who always try to make other follow. And many researches are going on this. So what I want to actually ask is that, is it really in the hand of the person not to feel homeless? I think it's not in his control at the same time. So could you please enlighten me? But again, thank you. You have really given a very good lecture.
Oh, how kind of you. Thank you so much. And thank you also for your question. I think all of the papers that have been presented at this conference, every single paper has basically dealt with the problem that you are talking about, which is how does one negotiate, this sense of being forced to conform to a certain idea of home that one does not belong to. But my difference with all those other papers and this paper is this, that in those other cases, the pressure has come from the nation state. It has come from outside of your domestic space. So, of course, I mean, there are 10,000 problems and tons of people are working on it. That is something that we talk about all the time. So, of course, that is something that I was not going to talk about because everybody else talks about it. My problem is with those people specifically who live with their parents, whose parents are not migrants, whose parents are not in any way a religious minority, and those who still feel homeless within the home with their parents. So I am completely aware that there are bigger issues of homelessness that are being talked about. Every paper talked about it. The idea of not belonging to a certain geographical location, the idea of not belonging to a particular religion. These are big coercive forces. I am much more interested in the coercive force that goes on within what we actually call home. That is to say, the house in which I live with my parents, the house in which I live with my siblings. That is something which I think needs to focus on. But thank you so much for your question, Professor Ahmed.
Hello, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Who?
Yes, one.
Yeah, this is
Right.
from
Yes,
Delhi.
yes. Yes, please ask.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Amita Das, yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, my respect to you,
There's
sir.
one word I'm
First.
saying that learn to adjust because education.
Hello. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
Amita Das, please ask.
Yes.
Okay, sir. There is also one thing that I am thinking about, that like you say, that love is changing. Love changes us. So also love can always be misleading also, because love always carries a responsibility. Sometimes love for religion, love for culture, and even love for gender, or love for even patriarchy. It can be also misleading. So you can see that love also carries responsibility, and after like I'm loving something, and after 30 years I found that the love was actually misleading me, in terms of culture or in terms of anything. So then also there is a chance that I just followed my heart, but still I just followed the wrong way, sir.
Yes, wonderful question. I think that you really have to understand something very clearly, is that, if you are born into a certain structure, and if everybody tells you, this is what you should do, this is what you should believe, this is what you should do, this is what you should believe, and then if you say that you love that, then how much of that love is spontaneous and how much of that love is the result of conditioning? Yes. So please try to make a distinction between love that is spontaneous and love that is conditioning, because love of patriarchy, which is something that most of us suffer from, that love actually does not change you at all, because it actually keeps you rooted to a certain structure of oppression to which you have been born. You are not allowed to change. So therefore, love of patriarchy perhaps should not be confused with the kind of love that I'm talking about, because the love of patriarchy is not love. It is actually kind of conditioning. You are trained to do something and you end up doing it. It is almost like saying to somebody who is born in a prison that, he loves prison. Well, he loves prison because he hasn't known life outside of the prison. Right? So therefore, the way in which that person has been conditioned is something that they are comfortable with. So therefore, please try to make a distinction between conditioning. One has to think a little bit more about it. But yes, love has got lots of risks. Of course it does. Love entails a responsibility. Of course it does. And one has to be courageous enough. One has to be true to oneself enough to be able to go down that path. But thank you so much for your question.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, Sumit Roy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is last
Sir,
question.
as usual, your lecture was so revelatory. So
Thank
you so much, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question. As you are talking about homelessness and also about Tagore, so I want to relate your ideas about homelessness to Tagore's idea. Tagore's that famous novel, Home and the World, where we see that there are two characters, Nicholas and Sandeep, where Sandeep is deeply rooted in Indian culture, the Swadeshi movement, and all of that, while Nicholas is completely different. So, what is your idea about Nicholas's homeless? I think he is also homeless, still belonging to the same culture.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. And absolutely. Remember that Tagore. Well, you know, I knew that I couldn't avoid Tagore. Remember that Tagore is constantly talking against nationalism, right? He is constantly talking against nationalism. He's saying that this is exactly, he regards it as poison. He thinks nationalism is absolutely poisonous. Because of course Tagore himself knew what it is like to like another culture, right? He knew what it is like to other culture. He loved another culture. He, for example, loved Scottish ballads. We all know that he stole, the academic term for that would probably be plagiarized. He plagiarized from various Scottish folk tunes. We all know that. He plagiarized from English ballads. He loved English culture. Yes. You know, Rabindra Sangeet sounds much better on the piano than it does on the harmonium, because many of the tonal structures of Rabindra Sangeet were actually based on the way in which the piano is played. So Tagore clearly understood, and of course, you know, if you go to his brothers, if you go to down the line of Tagore sort of family, you're going to find that there is huge attraction from Arabic culture. There is huge attraction for Far Eastern culture, Japanese painting, Chinese painting. Yeah, huge attraction towards that. The members of the Tagore family, they would actually sign their name in Bangla in such a way that it would look as if it's Arabic. So therefore, Tagore understood what it is like to love a culture that is not your own. So I think that pretty much answers your question. He is very suspicious of people who are nationalists, who say, I love my own culture. Tagore's constant question is, please tell me what is your own culture? How does it become your own? Through inheritance or through love? Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So Tagore's idea doesn't contradict your also.
It doesn't at all. It doesn't at all. I'm sorry to admit that I'm in complete agreement with him. I'm in complete agreement with him. Tagore was very much an internationalist, as indeed am I. Tagore hated nationalism just as much as I do. So yes, unfortunately, we are in complete agreement.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, another hand, I can see that
yes.
from Amrita Mitra.
Amrita Mitra. Yes, Amrita, you could unmute yourself and you could ask me.
Thank you so much. Sir, actually you mentioned women, how women are always outsiders, though they are called the Lakshmi of the house, they seldom have money.
Yes.
So, yes. So, and we are also, you know, sometimes forced to choose between being a career woman and, you know, the lady of the house or the angel of the house, whatever it is. So, will women always be compelled to choose between a home without dreams and dreams without home? I mean,
well, I think that no, absolutely not. I think this is something that feminism has I think answered that question, and feminism continuously asks that question because the complexion of the question continues to change. But no, I think this is something that feminists have been very clear about. Is that the personal is political. So therefore, one should absolutely understand exactly the nature of what is this home that women are born into, whether it is actually a home or whether it is actually a prison. This is something that women should very, very carefully try to understand, and a lot of women do at great risk. But if you love, then you take a risk. So a lot of women, over centuries, I was going to say over decades, but no, over centuries, a lot of women have taken this huge risk, and they have said, what society has taught me is my home. I don't belong there. I do not belong there. It is not mine. And of course, for women, this is absolutely, this is dramatically performed when they get married, don't they? And even if when they don't get married, the moment a woman is born, the Hindi phrase for them is paraya dhan. So can you imagine that you're growing up in a household where you are constantly reminded that this is not your home? Wow. So you're growing up in a home being told by your mother and by your father that this is not your home, and then you're still expected to find it your home. What nonsense. So therefore, I think women have begun to sort of understand it, and women are protesting against it. I know many women, God bless them, who are refusing to get married. There are women who are refusing to have children. There are women who are actually refusing the shackles that have been sold to them as homely comfort. They understand that it isn't homely comfort at all. It's a prison. So Amrita, a lot of women have taken charge of their dreams, and they have made their dream home. And everybody can. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So since there is no questions, so I would request Jahira Hussain, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Surendra College, to deliver formal vote of thanks. So Jahira, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Hassan. So we come to the end of the plenary session, and I can't thank you enough, sir, for the wonderful lecture and the very engaging Q&A session. I wish we could, it could go on, and it could we could have a few more, say, minutes hearing you out on excellent deliberations, but unfortunately, we have to wrap up the session. So before I deliver the formal vote of thanks from, on behalf of the organizers, I would take your permission to read out a few comments as, appreciation that we have in the comment box. If you allow me to do so, there are, I think Murshid Alam, Dr. Murshid Alam has written, love changes you, so does Niladri's talk. Thanks for this ecstatic talk. And then Dr. Syed Aisha Ali has written, it was a new perspective to the concept of home and homelessness. Dr. Sheikh Kovita writes, mesmerized. And then there are many thank you messages from all of our participants. Then Niharika Prajapati says, it was a brilliant lecture, sir. You have given some fresh thoughts to chew on. Thank you so much. So yeah, I just wanted to share all of these comments because I was So thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. It is absolutely wonderful to have you with us. It is absolutely an honor for me also to deliver this formal vote of thanks on behalf of BASE and on behalf of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar College and Gaur Mahavidyalaya. And thanks to all the participants. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So thanks to all the participants and everyone who engaged with us and with sir throughout this process. It absolutely made the lecture worth it. So with this, we come to the formal end of this session, and we will be moving on toward the next plenary, which will be delivered by Dr. Ghazala.